Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. This is a series that consists of spewing out assorted thoughts which arose from somebody who thinks too much, taking in, and generally loving various entertainment media by the boatload. These tidbits may be mini theories, observations, or simply jokes. Hopefully people will find them entertaining or at least interesting. And who knows, maybe they'll lead to others looking at what amuses them in different ways than before. Also, bear in mind that everything blabbed about in these videos comes from the perspective of somebody who's experienced every main story bit connected with whatever works currently being gone over. So spoilers are a definite. However, other works set in a shared continuity will typically solely be referenced in a way that only makes sense to anybody who's also experienced those ones fully up until their same time occurring points. Sort of a coded nod kind of deal. So, while things will be more fun for viewers who've indulged with an entire universe's works, nobody who has yet to do so will get non-experienced events spoiled. Now, with all of that out of the way, here we go. Out of time. Nate and Oliver's ability to realize minor timeline changes have occurred might be the result of a history-protecting Gideon feature that involves precisely aimed subconscious targeting distress signals. That is, the alteration annoyed artificial must trigger some things aren't right focused thought chains within people who are capable of greatly influencing Earth's history by using a special sound or whatever. These temporal tamper teasing tones would of course even affect folks who can greatly help the world in a non-superpower involving capacity, like medical researchers or cartographers, so such sound success odds are generally pretty good. Sarah isn't simply looking for opportunities to kill Damien Dark. She's specifically seeking out ones that could be pinned on somebody else in history. Einstein is skeptical of an unrecognizable individual being a physicist because any scientist showing up at the same party as him would obviously possess at least one shared work-related connection. So, any newbies would likely be introduced to Smart Albert by a familiar government agent or something. The Wave Rider definitely needs to be capable of easily brushing off any past contained weaponry. After all, if it got damaged, then the camouflage might wear off, and earlier located folks glimpsing a time ship could easily result in much history-harming hoopla. Nate is of course initially worried about doing anything beyond an advisory role due to his hemophilia, which he later gets harshly reminded about when Sarah thrashes him. That previously mentioned idea about pushing plentiful potential possessing people into discovering chronological chaos via sending supremely secret special sounds might be something that automatically activates alongside every time scatter. Throwing folks randomly throughout all of history is pretty much guaranteed to completely screw it up. The physical body influencing variety of random time travel side effects may have somehow transformed Sarah's resurrection generated mystical bloodlust into its more typical horniness involving counterpart. Simply put, Miss Lance sees so much action from season 2 onwards because she's been enveloped by an impressive magical sex aura. Hence her achievement of such logistically impossible physical intimacy related feats like sleeping with a Puritan village's entire female population. The Justice Society of America. Dawn most likely knows how to make a superpower-granting serum because he experimented with drug-based speed gain-related things before figuring out how one can truly replicate what made Barry Allen the Flash. Stein's early insistence that Dr. Haywood go away is simply him trying to emulate the captaining style of an early Season 1 Rip Hunter. There's a fair chance that Nate saying, "Nobody knows more about history than me," isn't just hyperbole. After all, in addition to being an excellent historian, he's one of the few people in existence who knows what that JSA group is. Vixen's totem, which is stated in her titular series to only be capable of getting snatched away by force if its wearer has perished, might be experiencing some good old-fashioned magical errors. That is, the thing might be confused because it's surrounded by people who are typically only alive when Amaya is already dead. Ray likely knows how to fine-tune Thawne's quickly concocted capability catapulting creepy cola because he learned much about crazy medical feet reaching while deciphering how one can start some super suit sparked supreme shrinkage without facing a horrifying crush related demise. Amaya is probably so insistent about Ray not being referred to as a superhero because the woman's totem related experience and tribe rooted mystical beliefs have resulted in her solely associating said word with supernatural and not greatly above average. On top of not caring about changing history too much because he's planning to edit everything with the spear anyway, Eobard might be fine with making messy alterations, since doing so grants him some sort of flash-fooling stealth mode. Simply put, if the Legends decided to describe this sadistic speedster's sloppy situation shifting in front of Mr. Barry Allen, it wouldn't really match up with that magnificently meticulous moment modifier he's oh so familiar with. The unseen multiple versions of this episode's events may have been caused by Thawne needing many tries because Black Flash kept showing up and interrupting him. Shogun. Amaya would have been able to sneak onto the Wave Rider so easily because Gideon probably has trouble detecting beings utilizing mystical animal spirit granted super stealth and or speed. Nate's skin literally becoming steel might be the result of him possessing a meta gene. It wouldn't have activated before without some serum support because his hemophilia made extreme danger seem like too normal a situation. Ray's belief that his suit will kill the Shogun could stem from it being designed to only successfully shrink him. Thus, anybody else who tries faces a very gross demise. Vixen not believing in ninjas means either the US government didn't know about a certain League of Assassins in her time, or that JSA members' clearance levels aren't really that high, and thus they don't possess much classified information beyond their own existence. Masako looks confused when Mick asks for some rice wine, because he pronounces it like a word that means blossom. Given that at this point in history, Japan didn't contact other countries very much, it makes sense for her to not correctly interpret a relatively common mispronunciation from context alone. Ray made the Atom suit operable by an idiot so he could focus fully on enacting his complicated plans that involve being shrunk instead of literally using all his concentration to simply move around. Rip never let anybody else know about the armory room with Barry's message because it's full of anti-speedster weapons and he didn't want certain rogues to steal them. Abominations. Stein is extra afraid throughout the episode because he thinks future Barry's war warning could be about a conflict against some form of undead army. The Legends can just hang out in space or somewhere else nobody would ever see them that's not temporal zone located now, because without any Time Masters or other such overseeing organizations around, they don't really have to worry about getting tracked down. Compromised. Stein is lying about not knowing who Doc Brown is because his connection with Jax means that even microscopic pleasant moments, like remembering a movie together, could lead to much bonding ensuing. Any interaction like that would simply be too risky when the good professor is focused on not caving in to his other half during their disagreement. Ray might not just be offering to fix the cold gun because working on tech is something that will make him feel comfortable and a bit less depressed. There's a fairly good chance that Cisco may have built weaker versions of Snart and Rory's signature weapons when replacing them back in that Season 1 Flash episode, Rogue Air. The Amaya disappearance that Todd references might actually be her return to Africa rather than all that time she's spending traveling through history. Sarah sends Mick and Ray to handle Dark because the former is liable to kill him, but with a Boy Scout such as Dr. Palmer around, she can always tell anyone who questions that particular decision something like, "Ray should have stopped Mick. I totally didn't want this to happen." Stein's struggle with his memories catching up with the timeline is because his new ones aren't really work-related. Fresh projects and discoveries are simply at his mental forefront much more often than emotional deals. 1987 was just a year after laser tag was first created. Chances are nobody at that dinner thought the cold and heat guns were real weapons because they somewhat resembled a famous toy. Sarah doesn't know how fast the Flash is, as she hasn't directly seen Barry in action yet. Miss Lance's speed assessment about the Crimson Crackle carrying Crazy being obviously quicker than his heroic counterpart could only come about based on that famous first Flash photo Iris West took, which showed electricity and a faint blur. The best replacement captain ever, of course, couldn't know that said picture taking was staged by Barry. Thus, she simply believes he's not fast enough to appear solely as lightning from slow folks' perspectives. Young Martin's willingness to take his older counterpart's advice isn't just because he's literally talking with himself. It's also due to the fact that going on about Clarissa more than scientific wonders like time travel must mean things are gravely serious. Outlaw Country. Mick goes to his room upon hearing that speedsters can time travel because he just realized the Flash could come after him literally anytime and anywhere. The Time Pirate's little shiny white future tech computer deal most likely can do more with Dwarf Star Alloy than simply locate it. The thing might also possess information on how to refine the stuff, and it may even be able to do such things itself, given what the Wave Rider and Gideon can pull off. Amaya chose to harness Rhino power while escaping that mine, because on top of receiving great strength, she'd also gain enough magical weight for some good balance eliminating charge action. On a related note, Vixen might be capable of upping her alcohol tolerance by accessing the spirit of any creature that is stupendously heavy. Invasion! Places the other 3 Dominator ships could have landed. DC, to check if the JSA was still a thing. Wherever the Hawks went after Legends Season 1. As even if they retired from vigilantism, there would still be eyewitness accounts of 2 airborne bird folks. Flying is how Kendra and Carter left, after all. Gotham, Batman's Rogues Gallery, often has at least a handful of metas present, with the likes of Clayface, Poison Ivy, Man-Bat, and Killer Croc. Dawn isn't attacking the Legends this week for 2 reasons. First, he obviously doesn't want his nemesis identifying him. Second, facing Barry and Wally simultaneously probably doesn't sound so fun when getting ambushed by the Swift Reaper is a possibility if the battle takes too long. Nate and Amaya are staying behind initially because there's speedster research to be done, but asking the Flash about such things directly could leave him too distracted for efficient alien brawling. Also, Amaya being the only legend not originally from this episode's time period may have been Nate's justification for her sticking around and helping out book-reading dude. Nobody asked about Kendra and Carter because they are either operating out in the open as the Hawk somewhere, as previously mentioned, or everyone's friends on super social media. Stein's most recent Lily memory flash was triggered by Diggs' daughter talk. Literally, Nuclear Professor makes a request of Caitlin to go with him because her medical knowledge could help provide an explanation for weird behavior if his first meeting with this mystery girl gets awkward. Those Atom Suit upgrades Cisco mentioned to Ray earlier in the episode might be somewhere in that paper pile. When Cisco brings up Barry talking about a war, it fills everyone with so much Agile Allen-aimed negative feelings that they'd never think to ask him about the wicked speedster after things calm down. They probably think their Crimson comrade might be responsible for things like the death of sisters, fiancés, and or fathers. Plus them recently refraining from changing much more horrible things like the entire 1800s might make them bitter that Barry is seemingly getting away with risking all of history for just one person. On the other end of this, Stein might be nervous about bringing up what changes he could be upset about because him being more forgiving of Barry might lead to his daughter's existence getting exposed. Mick doesn't like using the code names of everybody else because he's bitter that they chose their own while some nerdy dude gave him his. Gideon is probably that shrink Mick mentioned to Supergirl. On top of that aforementioned ample Allen-aimed agitation, the Legends might not want to bring up their fleet-footed foe because they can't risk Barry getting involved with more temporal shenanigans if it's somebody he's personally connected with, like an old foe, future fallen apprentice, or even a descendant. If the Dominators didn't refrain from taking Mick because they thought ruthless flame warfare was a power possessed by him, then there may have been worry that his weapon would explode inside their tractor beams. Also, they simply might think he's too crazy and thus they are scared of poking around in his brain. Invasion! The Legends don't have anything for Cisco to vibe Sarah and or Ray concerning things off of. There's nothing personal of theirs left in the present, and fiddling with Wave Rider located junk might produce too many possibilities to handle, since all of that is literally connected with every point in history because it spent so much time temporal zone hanging. Sarah remembers their current predicament first because fighting alongside a big group of super folks is an extremely typical life scenario for her nowadays. Ironically, one reason Ray would easily recognize a false reality is because his main motive for originally joining up with Rip and crew was to escape from a normal world that didn't have room for him anymore by engaging in hijinks which greatly resemble video game-contained stories. In other words, experiencing a fictional world mimicking lifestyle has made him adore what's true so much that he doesn't want want to leave his regular circumstances ever again. In addition to supernatural swiftness studying, Nate and Amaya probably spent much of their time during this crossover's first 2 episodes learning how to steer the Wave Rider. Even if it does have autopilot, they'd get bored, and whoever is flying when Team originally appeared on Arrow gets rescued doesn't seem so experienced. Invasion! Stein seems to be remembering emotional moments with Lily and the feelings caused by them first, instead of more fact-concerning things like her chosen profession. This is probably the result of him becoming a more sentiment-concerned New Timeline resident after advising his past self to do just that. The Legends actually don't have to worry about changing history that much during this Dominator Descent deal, because government people will keep practically everything about it out of public record anyway. At most, news outlets would be making vague reports like, Flash and friends fight ugly metas. Those strange physical effects, produced by at least the first few tech time travel trips, might be caused by whatever futuristic junk forces folks to fuse with their new present-day selves upon returning home. These history hop hiccups dwindle down after a few machinery-based wind warps because folks simply get used to dealing with it, like some sort of cosmic alcohol tolerance. A bunch of weapons are now openly displayed on the Wave Rider because either Sarah or Cisco mentioned Barry's message to Nate and Amaya after being informed of it. So, Team Steely Fox must have subsequently checked out that secret armory after receiving new orders from their captain. Firestorm likely still has trouble with transmutation because they unfortunately can't practice their signature power too much, since doing so always presents a great potential danger to history. That is, they can't risk accidentally making something in a period where it definitely doesn't belong and freaking out the locals. Among other ripple effects, leaving a Game Boy in the Renaissance would lead to some crazy stuff. The Legends would choose to consult Team Flask rather than accepting any champagne, because drinking regularly in non-FDA influenced places like Western times has given them a need for truly strong stuff. They probably use the Fabricator to generate all the physics-defying hooch a superhero could ever hope for. The Dominators might give Sarah and her companions a pass with regards to time travel because they don't care if it's done without powers, as machines can easily be stolen for their own use. The Chicago Way. Merlin isn't grabbed until around or after the Invasion crossover, because not only are his timeline contributions minuscule after that point, but also Barry would be too distracted with alien fighting to notice potential reports of Dawn in Star City, as would Oliver. Sarah isn't just treating Nate and Ray like misbehaving children because she's reminded of her own sibling argument experiences. There's also the fact that she earned $5,000 one summer babysitting many rich children. Spoiled kids can often act extra bratty, so the boys' antics probably brought some buried anger, or at least annoyance, up to the surface. Amaya using dolphin power to save Ness isn't just because said animal can swim quite fast. She'd also choose an aquatic mammal over any actual fish due to the fact that truly being capable of breathing underwater wouldn't produce enough urgency-related feelings for a swift victim location. Gideon replying, "Who says I haven't?" to the question of why she hasn't done anything about Mick's brain more or less confirms she's that shrink he mentioned during Invasion's first hour. Sarah is of course a good choice for infiltrating Capone's operations because she has had much experience with large organization mandated killings. Even if she didn't want to murder anyone because of moral growth or timeline change fears, faking it is always an option, which everybody else probably wouldn't be too good at since they haven't done it for real. At least not regularly or intentionally, except Mick. He's not involved because burning people to death can never really be done subtly. Rory's snart hallucination probably emerged now because all that talk about a speedster reminded him of his dear friend who loved challenging one. By Sarah's logic, nobody is real, since every time travel trip likely caused a birth or two to happen via ripple effects. Plus, everything in the last few timeline iterations has at least been loosely caused by Vaughn killing Barry's mom, so all their experiences should be considered aberrations too. Martin is probably too caught up in all of his new memories of Lily to recall anything about Dawn, such as lightning color or general MO. Dawn has no idea about Stein's personal history because not only is he lacking in the Wells memory having department right now, but caring about past folks who aren't named Barry Allen isn't something that comes naturally to him. So, even if Eobard started researching the Legends, his lack of interest in them would prevent further study once he realized they were incompetent screw-ups and thus could easily be defeated without much planning. Reverse Flash easily taking taking over the Wave Rider boils down to two things. 1. Thawne has encountered Rip Hunter at least once, so there's a fair chance he already raided the vessel and memorized its layout while doing so. 2. Eobard has a Gideon in his suit, which means he might have enough familiarity with the ship's OS to take control faster than anybody else possibly could. Thawne's lack of using advanced speedster techniques such as phasing while inside the ship might be because showing one off would make Black Flash come sooner. If not that, then using too much Speed Force energy might activate the time drive in a short-circuiting kind of way and send everybody who knows where. Sinister soul-seeking, skinless speedster seems to catch up with Thawne just before he can successfully kill Amaya. Perhaps the thing shifts into high gear whenever it senses a massive timeline change incoming. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.